Hey guys, it's Kenny here. Today I want to talk to you about my volunteering journey as a UEFA volunteer for the UEFA Europa League 2026 final in Istanbul. Let's get started. So, before getting into it, let's talk about Istanbul. As you know, Istanbul is an amazing city and it hosted many great finals. 2005 UEFA Champions League final, Liverpool got the cup against Milan. 2009 UEFA Cup final, Shakhtar Donetsk get the cup against Werder Bremen. 2019 UEFA Super Cup, Liverpool got the cup against Chelsea. 2023 UEFA Champions League Cup, City got the cup against Milan. 2026, this year, where Aston Villa got the cup against Freiburg. So basically, Istanbul is a lucky charm for English sides. Side note, 2027 Conference League final is also scheduled to be played in Istanbul at Beşiktaş Park if Ankara 19 Mayıs Stadyumu is not completed until then. I spilled my coffee on all of my notes.
My god.
So we're gonna just improvise. So let's start with when I applied and what they asked from me. I applied for this volunteering role on January 18th, 2026 on my UEFA portal. I had my UEFA portal because I also applied for the 2023 UEFA Champions League final in Istanbul. But unfortunately, I was not able to go there because of my final exams, because back then I was still a university student. But this time, since I graduated 2 years ago and since I have a job and I don't have any limitations, I was like, okay, why don't give it a shot? So they asked for our basic information, our language skills, and our past volunteering experiences if we had any. I volunteered in Portugal back in 2020, and I also volunteered in Erzurum back in 2022 as a translator and a volunteer. 28 countries made appearances there, including Turkey, and it was a good experience for me, so it was pretty easy for me to fill in the blanks. We also shared our opinions on the roles that we wanted. I wanted to work on ceremonies, live events, and accreditation, but I got Fan Festival, which was better for me. So let's talk about my interview. On February 26th, 2026, I had my first interview with one of the UEFA staff, and I basically talked about myself, my job, and why I thought I would be a fit member to work at that kind of organizations. And then they also, again, asked us what kind of roles we wanted, and I just said that I wanted that kind of role that would allow me to work with people, with fans, and also use my language skills. Because as I said before, I am a really extroverted person and I like communicating with people. So I wanted a role that would allow me to communicate with people, with the fans, with people who are coming from different cultures, different backgrounds. So being a festival volunteer was just the right role for me. It fit me like a glove. So I got another email from UEFA on April 7th, 2026 about my role. I was offered Fan Festival volunteer, and then they added spectator service last kilometer volunteer on the last day, which was also good. And I accepted my role, and Fan Festival volunteers were responsible from the implementation of the Fan Festival areas. So I worked at Barbara Square. Fun fact, there were 10,053 interviews, 5,380 applications, and 454 volunteers, and I was one of them. I wanted to work in a place where I can use my language skills and communication skills, and Fan Festival was just right for me. So on May 1st, 2026, we had our first kickoff meeting online. It was mainly about how to get our accreditation before our shifts and how to get our stuff. And we were asked to be kind, respectful, positive, warm as volunteers, which were the credentials all of my volunteer peers and friends had. They were very kind, very respectful, very warm, and very friendly, which made this experience 10 times better because it felt like a friend group going to an organization all together. I felt so included throughout the whole organization, and it made it 10 times better for me. Then they announced our shift schedules. I had 18th of May as my first training, 19th of May as my first shift, and 20th, the game day, as my last kilometer spectator service volunteer role, and the 21st as the thank you event. It was not shift, it was just us getting together, having coffee, tea, dessert, and just music, and just celebrating this organization going well, safe and sound. Then we had another email and text message from UEFA about our accreditation number. And on the 15th, I had my online training shift for the spectator service. As I mentioned before, it was added to my fan festival role. It was about us guiding the fans because their tickets were color-coded to ensure safety and to avoid confusion before they enter the stadium. My friend and I flew to Istanbul in the morning on May 18th, 2026. We went to Atatürk Kültür Merkezi to collect our accreditation and our bag that UEFA gave us. There were 3 t-shirts, 1 tracksuit, a backpack, a bucket hat, a cap, a water bottle, and our accreditation that we could use when we were working there. And then we had breakfast by the sea near Dolmabahce Palace in front of the stadium. And then we went to our hotel. We stayed at Beer Station. And then we just pretty much strolled around the city and I got prepared for my first shift. So my first shift was on May 18th, 2026. I was really excited and I didn't know what to expect. However, it went really well. It was pretty much like a conversation, an icebreaker. We asked ourselves different questions about ourselves and we tried to remember the questions and answers. And then we went to Barbaros Square because Barbaros Square was assigned to be one of the fan festival areas for fans. And we talked about how to manage the booths, the area that we would work on, and then we ate and then we left. On 19th of May 2026 there was also a commemoration of Atatürk Youth and Sports Day, so the city was very energetic and beautiful, and it was also the day the fan festival was held. There were many areas: cage, sub-soccer, photo booth, PlayStation, Flixbus, Hancock, and some food stations and football pitch. And also there were special guests like İlhan Mansız, Pascal Numa, Marcelo Guedes, and Ahmet Dursun. I worked at the sub-soccer area. There were 5 little sub-soccers that you could play with your feet. It required 2 people to play. And my shift that day started at 10 a.m. and it ended around 5 p.m. For the sub-soccer area, I set a rule, just one rule, and it was anyone who scores 5 goals wins. And it allowed all the people to play, to try the sub-soccer area, and it was short enough for people to have competition and long enough for people to have fun. So I believe I used my quick thinking skills to set a rule there and let all the people have fun without having confusion. And on the same day, after my shift ended, I went to spend some time with my friends. And one of my friends came to visit us. In the evening, I went to watch Freiburg training at 7:45 for 30 minutes. And we clapped for them, we cheered for them, and they waved back at us. It was a beautiful interaction because that was the first time that I have ever heard about Freiburg. But we were solely there for the beauty of football, the beauty of people coming together for 2 teams and supporting them. On May 20th, 2026, the match day, I worked as a spectator service / last kilometer volunteer, my additional role to the festival volunteer. We helped fans to find their ways according to the colors of their tickets, but most of them came to city days before, so they knew what they were going, but we were there anyway to help them. And we wore these green vests and caps and fan information boards. And we also had little maps of the stadium and around it with us in case of confusion. So after our shift ended, we went back to the stadium to return our stuff about spectator service role. And we were inside, drinking water, getting rest because it was a long day. And it was 5 minutes into the game. And we went there and I was discombobulated when I saw my home for the first time. Although I have seen it the day before during Freiburg training, it was really beautiful when it was full and loud. The acoustics of the stadium was magnificent. And from banners to the pitch and to everything, they looked exquisite. I have a side note here. UEFA got the stadium weeks ago and also modernized and retrofitted many areas and stations both inside and around Beşiktaş Park. So it was win-win for Beşiktaş. It's both good for exposure of Istanbul and our home and the free of charge modernizing of the stadium. The entire stadium broadcast cabling was overhauled to support top-tier international TV standards and multi-angle camera feeds. Also, following UEFA regulations, the stadium shifted to a 100% cashless system. All things purchased were paid with card, also no paper tickets. And also locker rooms and tunnels were modernized to meet final match requirements after UEFA inspections. Extra security perimeters and ticket check barriers were installed outside the stadium gates to manage crowd flow safely. Neutral branding. Also, the stadium was temporarily renamed Beşiktaş Park. All internal digital screens, banners were fully covered with the UEFA Europa League corporate branding. Also, Beşiktaş get free advertising benefits for renting the stadium for 1 to 2 weeks. Free upgrades and the overall benefit when it comes to city's economy with many fans flying there, accommodation, food. I also stayed at Beer Station Hotel and it was full of Aston Villa fans. So I felt the excitement of the game before the game with them. Let's talk about the thank you event, aka after party. On May 21st, 2026, after the game, we had our thank you event with the volunteers. There were tea, coffee, dessert, but I went there early in the morning to have this Beşiktaş breakfast and it was really good. And until people came in for the thank you event, I made some coffee and I just strolled in the stadium and I also helped these people clean the stadium because I like to clean my house after a good party. After the thank you event, they gave us our volunteer diploma and some gifts from UEFA. This is our volunteer diploma that we were given. It has messages of appreciation both in English and Turkish, and I think it is something very good to add to your CV. And after the party, we said goodbye and I returned to Antalya to continue my holiday. My thoughts on working for and with UEFA. As a teacher, I think I'm a quick thinker and solution-oriented person, and I'm very social. So it was like a holiday for me to work with the fans, with local people, and as a fan festival volunteer, it was a very good role for me. And also, since we were staying at the same hotel, I had great conversations with the English fans, and 3 days before the game, they were there and I was also there. So we had great conversations, great interactions. And on the game day, I went up to watch the game randomly and I was with Aston Villa fans. So it was pretty good for me and it would be the same if I watched the game with Freiburg fans as well. But since I was staying at the same hotel with Aston Villa fans and they taught me most of their songs and chants and cheerings, it was pretty easy for me to sing with them, to cheer with them. And when the game ended, when they won the game 3-0, singing Freed from Desire and We're the Champions with them was just remarkable. I really cared about the wellness of this organization because it's my country and I'm a Beşiktaş fan, so it was pretty much my home. So I tried to be a good host to these guests and it made me really happy to see that that kind of big organization went really well in my house. And I love football in general, so I want more finals to come to my country, to come to Istanbul. And I really like football, so I watched it with Aston Villa fans and it was great. But I had times when I appreciated Freiburg fans, when I clapped for them, and I really, really admired their grit and strength to come this far. Let's talk about some highlights about this game. First, we have attendance. 37,324 people watched the game, and 20,000 of these fans were Aston Villa fans. More than 40 million people watched the game all around the world. Winning this European final, Aston Villa took the cup to their museum after 44 years. The last time was in 1982 Champions Clubs Cup. Head coach Unai Emery got his 5th Europa League Cup. Prince William watched the game in Istanbul. Another thing I wanted to share about this final is something personal. I kept my expectations very low. It was on the ground because since I was a festival volunteer, I just kept telling myself, okay, don't get your hopes up because you're just a festival volunteer. So do not expect to watch the game. Do not expect to go into the stadium that much. But I watched the game and I basically lived in there for 4 days. I ate there. I rested there. I had snacks there. I had great friends and great conversations there. So it was really eye-opening for me to keep my expectations low, but have them really fulfilled 100%. And the last thing about this final that I consider being a highlight for me is singing Freed from Desire and We Are the Champions with Aston Villa fans. Because I knew the lyrics, I could feel their excitement and their happiness. And since I loved football in general, I really loved that moment that I sang with them. And I also loved the moment Aston Villa players kind of made a way for Freiburg footballers to pass through. And it was really respectful, it was really good, and it was just the core of the idea of equal football for me. So that was all I wanted to share with you about my volunteering journey. It was very important for me to go there and tick that box, especially after I was not able to go in 2023 due to my exams, but this time I made it and I am so happy about this. And I intend to be a part of these organizations in the future more and more, and I encourage you to take the step forward and do something for you. So until our next video, take care of yourself, be safe, and love yourself.